And, we haven't got to see a lot of these teams recently. We followed the upper part of the bracket just a little while ago. So we are going to get into Cursed Hollow between these two teams, imported support. You might recognize that name from PAX last year. So they were able to qualify for PAX East. So roster looks a lot different, though.
Yeah. That's for sure. And it will be the Zarya and the Zeratul bands. Okay.
All right, Zeratul, I think a lot of people, this is one of his better battlegrounds to kind of work around. He has easy escape options that you might not have on other battlegrounds. You like larger ones, good setup points, and this is definitely one where you have that.
Wait,
you do let Tassadar through, and sometimes teams aren't as confident first picking Tassadar, and a lot of times they do it simply to deny their opponent the Tassadar. So you have to think that if you give it up, do you have the tools to deal with a potential Tassadar Vala or a Tassadar Tracer or a Tassadar Illidan? Very common heroes that we see paired with it. So it's either you're going to pick it or you're going to give it up, and we're about to find out.
Sometimes it's a tough call. I mean, you look at the options here on the map. Tassadar pairs well with many heroes. Good for the stalling in his own right, and they will go for that first pick. Now they have to say, all right, what do we have to worry about? Falstad, ETC, Malfurion, Dahaka, all very strong picks here.
All right, Tassadar was picked up. So do we see a Vala denial simply because that? Some teams aren't necessarily as big on Vala anymore, especially in the Western region. So her win rate has been below 50% between the Western and Eastern clashes. So we've seen less priority of it, but do you feel comfortable giving it up to Tassadar? Again, without the first bans on Tassadar, you have to wonder on certain things that you're okay with.
They're giving it the full thought. All right, Arthas Dahaka. So their front line is locked. This forces the ETC as far as I'm concerned. ETC, but I mean, it's not that the ETC Malf is bad, because or Malf and Tassadar rather. But would you prioritize that here?
You bring up an interesting point because ETC, we know what he can do playmaking wise. If you don't go Vala here, it will potentially be banned, and you will have things available to you otherwise. Malfurion, obviously a great pickup that you could go with. So you have a lot of options, but again, you have to make use of the Tassadar pickup to get really, really true value out of it. And if you're just basically being a shielding hero with the occasional damage, you don't necessarily get the same type of value. And depending on what you pair it with. And this is actually one of the few maps that, despite a lot of the craziness that comes out of Archon and, of course, the Infinite Archon at 20, because the way this battleground is set up, Force Wall actually becomes a little bit more of a threat if you're looking to set up potential combos because of the choke points on this map.
Well, LFM do go for the Malfurion and the ETC, saying they don't need the Vala. They don't need the Falstad here. They're going to concede both of those options right now. In terms of bans, Vala ban seems like a healthy one here. And I expect they would go for Falstad, given the option.
Yeah, Falstad, again, I don't think you necessarily have to play the global game. It's a good option with Tassadar. You would think that you would go into the Season Marksman to Falstad build, but Tracer, obviously a pretty big threat as well with Tassadar. So you got to think, what are you willing to give up? And Falstad, for what it's worth, isn't necessarily that big hero that you would potentially be saying, oh, okay, there's the Tassadar pairing that we're afraid of. It's not you don't necessarily see that with Falstad. So Tracer, a much bigger threat, I think.
Yeah, and does end up getting the ban. Imported, have a bit of support control. If they did want to look towards more CC in their composition, maybe one more hero, the Rhaegar ban becomes compelling because you're taking away the primary cleansing heroes. But Lucio with an Arthas Dahaka isn't really that too shabby.
So I'm making a quick note of something here, but yeah, you can start looking at range damage. I think Gleaming might not be bad if you want to try and play around the supports. You could go with a Rhaegar ban here. You know, when you secure your front line that early, it makes it a little bit easier to target some things that you don't want to play against.
And it's going to be that Li Ming. Okay. There's a couple different ways they can approach this. They should get their support and leave their last pick reactionary. Unless they're debating between Rhaegar and Lucio based on the opponent's composition, of course. Those two are. I really don't think we'll see the Bright. I mean, we saw Brightwing a few games yesterday, and it never looked great. Brightwing just kind of struggles without the Zarya or the Tassa or something to go with it. I think they'll take Vala. Maybe just Vala Tass here, honestly.
Well, Tassadar already picked
All
up.
right,
So.
Falstad, excuse me.
Yeah, I think that you could go that option. I think with Falstad, if you do go that route, you definitely want to make sure you go hammering build. There's the Vala pickup. Ariel, they're going to pair that up, make sure that they have the energy battery there with Vala. So we'll have some big damage potentially coming at the end of that.
I mean, Ariel does great with Vala. But overall, I find that to be pretty weird, honestly. Maybe they're going to go Gul'dan for...
Yeah.
You think it'll be something like Gul'dan or Lunara for the last pick?
I think it almost has to be some type of range damage with an interrupt. Yeah. Ariel, while she does have the Crystal Aegis, and she can also... She has a couple of small interrupts. You know, there was actually something we were talking about at Eastern Clash, Leoric, Lunara. Interesting.
This is the second time we've seen those two played in situations in which I did not expect them. Now, Leo, again, he's going to be the solo laner. But Lunara kind of slipping herself back into the meta nowadays.
I love it. We saw so much Lunara at Eastern Clash, and Lunara was one of those early pairings with Ariel because of that spread damage that was so effective. But again, it falls under the same principle of you have that extra damage at 13 to slowed heroes, and Leoric does that against frontline heroes. And Arthas, if he's slowed, he already lacks mobility. He just walks, right? He can't just like power slide or dwarf toss out of a fight. He can't brush or like burrow. So Arthas becomes a prime target where a lot of people don't necessarily, a lot of warriors, and so that's his downfall. But he recently received a buff on his health, things like that. They are going to play around the Falstad. So Falstad, damn it, it's a lot of auto attacks.
It really is.
So just one thing to keep in mind, Dahaka, Arthas, Vala, Ariel. If Entomb locks in on any of those members, you can't jump out of them.
You're forced to Crystal Aegis, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, you can't jump out of them. Mighty Gust will be your main deterrent for that.
Or that, yeah. No, I mean, Entomb's definitely going to be a playmaker here for these teams. Definitely a shift in the meta, though. I mean, I feel like every time we see these Lunara picks, you mentioned the Eastern Clash being a big contributing factor, but to see that impact on North America so quickly is surprising to me. But yeah, no harm, no foul. Really doing well here so far. Hecarim in the solo lane. Lunara going to put on all that spell damage. No TRL, no Nubarak, so they don't have to worry about those big tanks that will deny a lot of that good DPS. Should be an exciting series.
I don't think I have a favorite here.
I don't either. I really couldn't pick one. I mean, I always tend to lean towards global power. I just think you have more options when it comes to the macro. But
this was the game that Double Global, except they ended up with an app there at the end, did not work for them.
True.
The battle begins in 10 seconds.
Well, we do have Season picked up here. Frost presence instead of Rhyme this game. So that's the quest talent, looking for the Howling Blast
Well, what are you waiting for?
on heroes.
Well, the globals are already going to split out. They're going to send their 3-man. This isn't the worst 3-man. I don't want to say it's necessarily the best. We're going to have a 3-person trade. So we're going to have a 3-man in the top for, who do I have in blue here? For imported support, and we're going to have a 3-man trade at the bottom for LFM.
Yep, just quick damage going out. Swabs looks for the drag and does not get it, so they'll just wait for their minion wave before they push back on in. Same dealy in the top. They're just going to get that one tower safely. Specialty generating plenty of energy for the Aware to enable this to be very safe. You see that Drain Hope actually getting a lot of value for Hecarim having the additional range, but the walls will fall.
Well, sometimes this happens. You see the trade-off, and that's exactly what we're going to get right here. Falstad might rotate. Yeah, he's going to rotate down because he has that range. He's going to try and defend. Hecarim J, we saw him up there a moment ago. He's going to have a little bit of a tough time defending as well. So we'll see the trade. I don't know what to make of this. Neither team willing to commit or overcommit to anything. I think it's just going to be a fort trade.
You'll notice Crux is throwing those Howling Blasts out just kind of willy-nilly, but it's really just it's free quest talent progress for him. Halfway through that top fort, halfway through this bottom fort, dead even when it comes to that. I guess the most interesting thing is Swabs is, of course, winning his lane as Dahaka, just far better clear. So he's taking out a lot of the ammo in mid. And that's a small win in the grand scheme of things. The rotation will be here first from Imported, who do have that additional pressure that they can put on into the mid lane. Oh, they're going for the Mercamps, actually, now that we have hit the 2-minute marker, and the same here, just mirrored on either side.
All right, well, let's just hold a mirror up and look at each other, and we'll call it the first 2.5 minutes of the game. Tributes will be spawning sometime within the next 30 seconds, and then things will open up a little bit.
This is a lane that Crux will struggle with. If it is the 1v1 now, okay, Swabs is here, so that makes more sense.
This is bad for LFM. So Tassadar left, and while that seems like a good idea, you want to contest that tribute, and you've now left Falstad alone in the bottom, and I think that push might actually be a thing. Ishbu, though, on that front line, we're going to see as the roots are coming in. Falstad's actually going to make his way up. He's not going to defend. He's just going to come up and join the fight.
Okay, so Siege Giants in the bottom lane could end up being quite viable. VPJ might get the channel here, and yes, they get the quick tribute. Wraithwalk away, and that's going to be a safer trait with their roots to deny any kind of approach there from Imported support. Big victory for them, but that does give Swabs Magoo the opportunity to clean up this giant camp. Oh!
All right. That happened.
Moonfire kill?
Moonfire's on the other team, so probably not.
Oh, yeah, I just heard the sound effect as the last thing. It was Vala.
Yeah, that's a pickup. That's our first blood of the game, and now they're gonna take that same 3-man rotation. Although they have 2 members here with that kill, they have the advantage. They're gonna push in this middle lane, so give themselves not only experience lead from that kill, but more structure damage, and nice pickup there for Imported support.
Yeah, I mean, full level lead. The 7 should be here in time for LFM before we go into the tribute number 2. LFM are leading in the tribute count, which is great, but ETC will not be here for this fight. He is in the bottom, so that means they are, in fact, conceding this since 7 wasn't locked in right away. Made that call. Wraithwalk out. Hecarim's fine. BBJ probably not going to be so lucky. The fly-in from Ignition going to pick up that kill. Good detainment strike to open that opportunity to begin with from the Aware. Hecarim, I don't believe he has a Wraithwalk available, so he's going to end up dying also. Good pickups here on the side of Imported.
Yeah, not only that, but they have the night camp that they picked up just before. So starting to stretch the lead a little bit. This is actually a big deal because we have a full level lead now. And Falstad's able to rotate to the top. Dahaka's able to stay bottom, and they're able to push in the middle. Hecarim J, he has reanimated as Leoric, and he's back on the battleground. But it's 1-1 in terms of tributes, so next one won't be a curse for anybody. So could be a lot worse, but finding yourself a level and a half down right now is a big deal, because you will not have 10 by the next one. So you need to try and make sure and win this tribute or win this fight if you are LFM.
It's a big one.
He is landing these. He has 12 out of his...
that's so good. Like,
out of his 20, yeah.
How would you see Hecarim's going to be able to... Oh! Doesn't connect to that. Goes and swabs. Especially has a lot of poison on him. But again, Ariel can just heal, heal, heal. ETC not going to try to step in there. So as you mentioned, this sets up that opportunity where level 10 could become very problematic when the next tribute spawns, as there's a level and a half needed for LFM.
Yeah, this is going to be super tough. They sent Tassadar off to PL to try and soak. They don't really have a lot of interrupt options, and 10 was right on the horizon, so they couldn't really engage in that. So they do find themselves in a little bit of a tricky spot. You can't make a boss call at this point. You can't really defend a lot of the push because you don't have heroics. So imported support playing this map very well so far. A patient approach is giving them a lot of quest talents, a lot of map control, and potentially the first curse here, as the next tribute shouldn't be far off.
Nearly triple the XP from structures. You can see all 3 forts down, just netting them that huge advantage. 10 is almost here. So the question is, can they stall this out, lock in 10, make their way in, deny this curse, or do they have to worry about curses pushing them in, a boss play behind this? Yeah, they're not even going to try. They're just going to look to defend to the best of their ability.
The good thing for them is they have Siege Giants that are at the bottom, so those will actually defend the bottom lane pretty well, so they only really have to worry about the mid and top lane. Because that fort is already down in the top, it's on imported support to really push these lanes in, so it's a little bit easier defense. You still definitely have a wall to fall back to if you don't have the damage coming from it, so it's just a matter of a natural defense. So things could be a lot worse if you were LFM.
Yeah, it's very true. Dahaka does push out that camp. Falstad's got the global up top, pushes that out safely. So he's just going to do his best to defend that. And, they're looking for a weakness. Taking this watchtower does give them more control of this space. But without 13, they're just, they're playing pretty passively, waiting for that advantage. And with that, maybe they'll commit to a lane, or maybe they'll just fall back and get boss, because they don't want to overextend here.
Yeah, boss would actually be a really good call. The curse is just about up. You can actually see them heading that way. They've got the lanes really pushed up. There's not a whole lot further they can go. Falstad has that global. He has good boss control, but they also have 13 talent tier advantage. So right now, LFM really needs to recognize that that's the play. They need to get their own boss. If they don't get on their own boss right now, which we see Falstad scouting that out, they'll potentially be giving up back-to-back bosses, and that becomes a very big problem. You can see they have started it. So they need to be able to soak at the same time, but because they've gotten here so late, this might be a play. Stage dive is a heroic, but this is actually a very scary moment. They made this rotation very, very slow.
Oh, Ignition barrel rolls as he gets hit by the Twilight Dream, but it's not enough to lock him in place. And now you've got the collapse on here. The boss is in bottom. Dahaka is up here on the point, forcing them all away. They can try to steal this. Gus still available, so it's all but over in terms of their chances of taking this boss. It's nice and tuned, but
the Rain of Vengeance.
They haven't even gusted yet.
So many members. Hecarim J trying to walk away. The boss pushing the bottom. The mighty Gus separates Leoric. That's probably one of the better heroes to die if you're on LFM side. But now you have a boss pushing in 2 separate lanes. Things are getting out of control right now.
Imported,
Bad.
They're in the driver's seat, like big time. They're gonna get keep. They gotta keep wall. Even gonna get the well. That's bonus brownie points. Howling Blast, that was the last one needed. Frost Presence is now up and ready.
They don't have 13, and we might... Oh, they're actually going to back out. I'm surprised they're not going to be more aggressive with this. You don't have to commit, but they didn't go mosh, so the kill potential is a lot less, and Tomb is there, but they probably could have done some damage to the core, but they're just gonna back out and continue to play. If you're looking at it, whatever. I don't know how that happens, but you're just digging your hole deeper, James.
Yeah. Falstead's going to fly back in, 16-12 at this moment in time. The shattered armor too, working out pretty well here. I mean, new Arthas is so interesting. He's going to pop the Army of the Dead. Now he's actually invincible. He just can't die. And the keep that didn't have a boss in its lane will get pushed out. Oh, Swap steps forward. The drag, the rain of vengeance, the Dead Haka.
All right, Twilight Dream is used, but there's no follow-up at all. They're continuing to engage. And right now, you don't have to force into this, and Lunara, for what it's worth, is actually doing a really good job at holding him down. She also does a really good job at dying there.
Ignition gives...
Soy is down. This is actually game. They can rotate up top. They're going to get a keep. I feel like they could probably just walk right up and hit the core. They have catapults right behind them. They're going to play a slow game, 16-13.
Say slow game, but 12 minutes, 2 keeps down.
You could end there.
Yeah,
I mean, you have the composition to end. Between Vala, Falstad, and they have
Volstad.
Huh?
Volstad?
Volstad, yeah. They could have, but they'll just continue to play the large macro game. It's going to be very difficult for them to lose. But if you are on the side of LFM, if you're looking for opportunities to win, boss will be up in a minute and a half. So you could force a boss fight, and it's not exactly an easy one because Falstad's going to be there, but Leoric has opportunities. But it's going to be one of the few ways that you can dictate anything, because right now, imported support, they just have to walk away from everything. They don't have to force anything.
It's tough for LFM. I mean, you see the map is blue. Every Merc camp except for the Giant camp, which is not even worth their time to go back and get, has been collected here by imported support. 18-14, a 4-level dominant lead, and Falstead is on the core. So if they want to defend their core, they need to concede this keep. And it's just a brilliant play, but they're not taking the bait. Falstead's up here with this Night Camp, absorbing all the shots. Core has fallen. Stage dive in, but Swabs once again just drops the drag. The Rain of Vengeance, the rinse, the repeat. Big damage. Crux in the back doing ravenous amounts of damage. Falstead isn't even here. Oh, there he is. Gustarino and Chizadino. GG. They're not even past the keep.
I'm blue da ba dee ba da ba da.
Oh!
He lived with 7 health. I don't think he's going to live much longer. All right. Well, that was game 1. Imported support. Definitely just flexing their dominance there. Again, Tassadar will either make your team look great or make you question the pick. And I think that the Leoric pickup there at the end, you really got to wonder if that was the right pickup. I mean, we've seen